Hey, what's up, brother?
Not much. How you doing?
Not bad.
Ah,
What'd you do today?
let's see. Worked out. Uh, Helped one of my wife's friends move into a new apartment, which was literally moving her across the street, which was actually kind of more annoying than moving across a town or a city because you're not putting stuff in a truck. You're
Just
it's like
carrying it out.
yep, carrying out and then across the street. But yeah, not too bad. Lots of homework. It's just been my life. How about you?
So I took the dogs out for a run, um, one at a time because they're gigantic and I haven't done my due diligence and taken them for enough walks or runs. So I'm starting to practice now. Um, One of my dogs, Aries, the boy, he was pulling the whole time. Like I ran about 2 miles with him, and the whole time he was pulling and he wanted to go faster. And like part of that is just, I have to keep him under control and make sure that he knows like he's got to stay with me. But then part of it is also like he's got more energy than I do for 2 miles. I bet you I could take him in like a 9 mile run. I bet you he would poop out.
You would think. I don't know.
And then,
Some dogs have some just straight endurance.
oh, that's true. But then my other dog Mina, she like stayed with me the whole time. Like I walked her when she was a puppy because we had her like when she was just a tiny puppy. So I walked her when I just had her alone. So she's more used to it. And then I ran with her and she kept up with me until we hit about the mile and a half mark. And then she started like dragging behind. I'm like, oh, what's wrong? Yeah, but they had fun. And then I came home. I cut the grass for the first time this year, and I fixed my fence. I took a bunch of slats off. Pounded in like the fence on one of the lines of my property. It sits at a low point between the two houses, which that's good. That's drainage. Like you don't
Yeah.
want the water to go towards the houses. The problem is like that it's always mush. So
Mm.
the fence post was probably leaning at probably like a 45-degree angle, and like it's just messed up. So I shoved in another like I didn't pull the entire post out and redo it because there's concrete down there. That's a whole production. So I pushed it and I wedged it. I took another piece of wood and like sledged it in so it like propped it up straight. And I redid a bunch of the slats. I cut down a tree. Um, yeah, I like redid my backyard again.
Productive day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mowed my lawn like 2 days ago for the first time this year. I need to get some dog safe weed killer though, because it almost happened like overnight. My lawn just became infested with dandelions.
Oh, that's
Like
okay.
I know, I know it's fine, but I took my eye off it for like a week, and then all of a sudden I go out back and I'm like, oh shit,
So
just that time of year.
crabgrass and things where like if you're walking in your yard barefoot or other things that are like considered weeds, okay, fine. Like anything that's like harmful to the touch,
Yeah,
or if you, yeah, anything that's harmful to the touch, you probably don't want in your yard. But things like dandelions, man, like you can eat those.
I I know they're fine, and I know it's not a problem. If anything,
They're
I don't know.
pretty.
Our the essential like the homeowner association that basically like
Oh, okay.
runs where
Now,
I live. Yeah,
all right.
they're very particular about lawn maintenance, including the backyard. So I know.
That's so if you
Last year
do,
I got one ticket for having my backyard get a little too long,
oh my God, that's so, oh.
and it was
Do you
like
know
a
where,
ticket, but still, yeah.
do you actually know where the green lawn, like the craze came from?
I remember I listened to a podcast about it, but I really don't remember specifically what it was from.
We listened to the same thing. I guarantee it was
Oh, I'm sure.
like how it not the what's the
Stuff you
one?
should know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember it. It was a so before the 50s, right? Before World War II, a healthy yawn or healthy yawn. good grief. A healthy lawn had stuff like dandelions in it.
Yeah.
1, because they're pretty. 2, because they're useful. And 3, because they don't harm anything. So there's really no reason to have a dandelion in your yard, or not to have one in your yard.
Yeah.
So that was considered part of a healthy lawn, as well as different types of grass and all that other stuff. It was completely fine. This craze of having like that perfect green, just grass lawn with all uniform colors, that came about because chemical companies that were making things for the war effort had nothing, like had no use for all these chemicals that they were making. So Scott's chemical company, like they ran these ads like saying like your yard shouldn't have weeds in it. It should only have green grass. And then it took off. It was like De Beers making diamonds popular back in like the 20s and stuff. It's
I was about to say early 1900, like 1900s spawned some weird industries that don't need to exist.
no,
Yeah,
like
that's
weed
pure
killer.
advertising.
Yeah, I mean, weed killer itself, like for home use, I'm in my head, I'm not, I can't think of anything where it's a necessity.
Oh yeah,
Maybe that, like I said, maybe some things that are
I've
harmful.
encountered some weeds where it's like, yeah, that shit's got to go. Like you can kind of tell when something has to go versus like down in Texas, they have weeds that like you can't walk on the grass if your house has those weeds.
Yeah,
Like
see,
these,
okay.
yeah, they
That's a,
literally just them when they're green, they're awful and get stuck in everything, and then once they die and turn brown, they're just the worst. Like my
oh, the
dogs,
burrs.
yeah, my dogs they wouldn't go in our yard if that stuff was in there. Like they were afraid of grass until we got here. They were so excited.
Do you imagine that, like being scared of your backyard and not wanting to go into it? That's crazy.
Yeah, you pretty much have to like tarp your backyard until it dies and then like clean it out. It's yeah.
Yeah, the other day here, it was I went on the prairie path. I did like a 40-mile bike ride. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty nice, man. Like there's a like that it's especially around this area, is like the Chicago suburbs, it's hard to find an uninterrupted path for, an extended period of time. So most bike riding is done on the street. And you can take all the safety precautions you want and do everything you want. It's just that's not my thing. I'd prefer, if I'm riding a bike, I would really not like to have to worry about traffic.
Yeah, I'll never. I've heard too many horror stories from guys I used to work with that were big bikers. I was like, I'm never doing road bikes.
Yeah, I got hit by a car. I've said the story before, but I got
Yeah,
hit by a freaking car like a block from my house. So like, it's not my favorite thing.
yeah. Do you remember Jason from where we used to work? It's one of the guys on our team. He got
Vaguely.
hit by water bottles regularly. People just not
Why?
empty ones. People would throw like half full, sometimes full water bottles out of their car at bikers in Chicago. Just
Why?
that was just something he's like, and that's part of why they started having like essentially road biker gangs. Like he would bike with the groups because that was the only way cars wouldn't mess with you.
Dude, that's so
So yeah,
ridiculous.
like in
I
Chicago, a lot of people use road bike groups just to stay safe so that they don't get assaulted while they ride on their own.
so dumb, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I can see there are some times where you know that person that you saw on the road and they were on a bike, and you got just as upset as everyone else did because that guy thinks he's in a car and he's just pedaling along at 10 miles an hour in the middle of the goddamn street and also not following traffic laws. It's like you can't have both, man. If you're
yeah,
on the road, you have to follow traffic laws. And you want to be a part of traffic? Great. You have to follow those laws. Otherwise, get your ass on a path. Please stop. It's so annoying because then they like swerve in and out. They don't stay. We don't have dedicated bike lanes around here, so like it's a rare occurrence. But when it does happen, but we had, like I said, we have a bike path around here, so most of them take that, and it's not too bad.
yeah.
So
Chicago's weird.
all right, before we get into fights, there was a couple of things that I wrote down that I wanted to like get out there that I thought were dogs. Um, oh man, did you hear them barking? Are you guys both dead? Huh? My dogs are both laying on the floor in a heap because they're so tired.
Yeah, my wife's out still over helping her friend move, and my dogs are very sensitive when she's not home about things going on outside.
Well, yeah, they're
And
just they're protecting the house, you know.
they also just get excited because they think every car is her coming home.
Oh,
Yeah.
mom's home. Mom's home again.
All right.
Mom's home
So,
again.
what do you want to talk about?
Um,
Pre-fight
okay,
talk.
so there's a couple of different things. So, um, part of it connects to like an ongoing discussion that I've had with any MMA fan. So if you consider the champion, like especially a dominant champion, a puzzle, right? Someone like John Jones or Khabib, they are a puzzle that needs to be solved. Okay,
Mhm.
there are, unlike a puzzle, there might be more than one solution. Okay, so there could be more than one solution, but the problem is, especially with long reigning champions, you don't just get to solve that puzzle. You have to solve 10 puzzles or 5 puzzles before you get to the main one. So the skills that you have that allowed you to get into that position to get that title fight don't necessarily translate to winning that title fight, especially when the champion is such an outlier, either in ability, straight up like skill, physicality, or his technique. So in that division, especially like lightweight division, there's nobody who does what Khabib does. So you have to solve different puzzles before you get to Khabib. And none of those things on their own prepare you for fighting Khabib. And that's what allows these long reign champions, especially ones who can adapt like George St. Pierre did to the changing times, to stay a champion for so long. They might get the cream of the crop. And that's true. Anybody who gets to that title picture, barring some, extraneous examples, deserves to have that title shot. But the thing is, there might be much more challenging fights for the champion, but those guys aren't going to make it there because they don't, like, that style doesn't win them the other fights. And that's one of the issues I have with Khabib being the champion, is because I don't feel like he came up through the most stringent competition before he got to the belt. It doesn't necessarily mean he wouldn't have got there. I still think he would have been champion regardless, but I think he had an easier road to get the belt than he has defending it. So he's done an excellent job, and I'm not taking anything away from him.
I definitely agree with you on that. Not all roads are the same in the UFC. I mean, look at, I mean, for everyone's love and hate of him, look at Brock Lesnar's road to the belt.
2 fights.
Like, yeah, that is, that might be one of the easiest roads in heavyweight history outside of like the first champion.
Yeah, it's because
Yeah,
he was
well,
super popular.
he was super popular, got the right combination at the right time, and even lost and still got that chance. So yeah, not all roads are the same.
Yeah, and I've been going back and watching fights. So
So have I.
yeah, I finally got Fight Pass. I had it for a while, but I got rid of it, and I just got it again so I could go back and watch literally every single UFC fight. It's so cool. And dude, I watched Brock Lesnar's, because there's only, I only have to watch 3 fights. He fought Frank Mir, Heath Herring, got the title shot against Couture, won, then he beat Shane Carwin. That was it. And oh yeah, sorry, he beat
He refought Frank Mir too.
yes, he fought him at UFC 100. I watched that one as well,
For the
where he
interim.
pounded his face in. No,
Was that
Frank
not the
Mir.
interim?
No, Frank Mir had the interim belt. You're
That's
correct.
right. Yeah.
That was the unification fight at UFC 100.
Okay. That was
So
I rewatched all of UFC 100 like a week ago. That was
me
so
too. So good.
uh,
Um, and it's just one of those things where like I was watching those fights, and it reminded me of certain fighters today who, get their title shot early because of popularity, and then find it like Cody Garbrandt. He was given a title shot because, he, again, let me preface this because I want to say that I don't think anybody who's in the UFC doesn't deserve a title shot. That's not what I'm saying. That's like saying like, oh, he didn't deserve MVP that year. Like, he didn't, Or are you saying that you think someone else deserved it more? Because that's a different conversation. Saying someone doesn't deserve something that's really crude and it's very black and white, and that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is Cody Garbrandt, he had a lot of shine on him because he was not abrasive, but he was, in your face. He had a crazy fight style and he was knocking people out. Good on him. And then he beats Dominic Cruz. Like, he got a fairly quick path to Dominic Cruz. And then he fights Cruz, one of the best fights, if not the best performance in bantamweight history. That was phenomenal watching that fight. He just clowned one of the best in history. But then you can see like his flaws were easily.
He had a hard fall from the top.
And it's the same with what happened with Brock Lesnar. He got the ride to the top real fast. He deserved it. I mean, he beat those people. Like, they didn't give him fights and he lost every one and then got the belt regardless. He beat those people. He beat the champion at the time, Randy Couture, right? And you can say whatever you want about the strength of the division, and that's fine. But at the time, he was the best in that division. And then you could see what happens when the challengers started stacking up. Like, he lost the belt to Kane, and then he lost to Overeem. And yes, he did have diverticulitis, and he had a foot of his intestines removed, and I think that did play a part. But he clearly had flaws in his game.
Oh yeah,
and he came back and beat Hunt in that
weird. I almost
shit show of a UFC 200. I mean, it was a great performance. I'm not taking anything away from his performance. It was just that whole situation was so messed up, and it led to the super long lawsuit with Mark Hunt and the UFC.
When he walked in as like the purple giant.
Yeah. He was so white for that fight too. I remember that because usually he was super pale for that fight, and And I remember Mark Hunt before that fight. He was like, "Oh, let him take whatever he wants." And of course, he popped afterwards. And then Mark Hunt's like, "Hey, that's not fair." And I love Mark Hunt, but he shouldn't have said what he said before the fight and then gone back on it. Yikes. But I totally sympathize with Mark Hunt too, because he's been clean his whole career. He's been very vocal about it, and he's basically like, if you look at Bigfoot Silva, all the people he's fought have popped at some point. Like, he has fought if you want to call them dirty fighters, whatever. I'm going to call it normal fighters for the era. Everybody was on stuff. He was the outlier. Like, Mark Hunt was the outlier not taking things. And I sympathize with him saying, like, I've been fighting cheaters this whole time, and I get no, like, I'm not getting any accommodations for that. I'm not getting any there's no repercussions for these other fighters. Yeah, that the whole situation was a mess. Anyway, that was one thing I wanted to say, because I thought, like, I was looking at that and I was like, to get to Khabib is a different task than fighting him himself, because there are people who are phenomenal strikers, like Edson Barbosa, right? When he dude, he can knock a ton of people out, but Edson has
one of the greatest gatekeepers in lightweight history.
Dude, he's so good.
Yeah. Well, like, his career has essentially been that of, like, he is a lightweight gatekeeper. Like, he's the guy you got to go through to get to the title, but he never really strings enough together to get that shot.
No, and he finally did it. He put it together. He was working with Mark Henry, I believe. Yeah. He was working with them, I think, in New Jersey. And, his boxing improved. It was never terrible, but his boxing improved. His defense was better. And he looked great. And even that fight against Khabib, like, he looked fine. And he did what Edson does. But the thing is, that's not how you beat Khabib. Like, that's not how you do it. Like, a rangy fighter who requires distance, timing, and like a certain pace to a fight in order to win, or like a flash knockout, that's not how you win against Khabib. The flash knockout thing is always a possibility, but that is such a small percentage of the time. Like, you cannot be banking on one big shot to end the fight. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say some people can. Maybe in heavyweight you can.
So no, but there's a method to their madness. There is a setup. If that means you sit and wait right? Just for that one big right hand or big left hand, whatever you're doing. And you just sit and that's all you're doing is you're waiting so you can catch them like Derek Lewis does. Dude, that can work sometimes, but you also see the flaws in that when somebody wrestles you, somebody's willing to like pop in and out. Like there's ways to beat those things, and Khabib's style allows him to be, like I've said this before, he's very risk adverse. He takes the path of least resistance with most fighters. I think the best challenges for him are actually at 170 with Kobe and Kamaru. I think guys like them with their insane pace, their insane wrestling, really can like that they could push the pace and push the fight in a place where we wouldn't see, because there's not a lot of I don't think of a lightweight in my head that does what those two do. And I think they're the method, like that's the key to solving the Khabib puzzle, and we just don't have that in the 155 division.
We might.
Well, I'm not saying
I'm gonna say this.
Ferguson's not going to win.
Yeah, the more I've watched, obviously, the countdown videos, everything leading up to this, the more I'm kind of convinced that either one of, like, honestly, I want the Ferguson fight to happen with him.
We all do,
but
man.
Either one of them that wins, I think is going to be the best shot.
I told you.
Yeah, like, I'm pretty sold on Gaethje. I am.
Gaethje's nuts, man. He's crazy. Yeah. And then there's one other thing I wanted, I thought about the other day, before we start getting into the fights. So you can argue with me on this, and I'm more than willing to hear out, because I would like some confirmation or disagreement. I think of the UFC, like the more I think about this, the UFC is like the professional organization, right? In most other sports, like the NFL, the NBA, the MLB. And then all of the other MMA organizations, even though they're professional, are more like the collegiate level, NCAA. Let me explain, because I'm not trying to put down those organizations or the fighters in them. So let's look at a couple examples. College athletes, like in the NCAA basketball players and football players, I'm more familiar with than baseball or otherwise. Some of those players can compete at the professional level right now. They can go into an NBA or an NFL game and excel. They could be one of the best players in the league, and they can compete with them on a day-to-day basis. But in general, the depth is just not there. You're looking at the cream of the crop that, like I said, a lot of college players are better than current NFL players. They just are. We've seen it, right? They come in their rookie season and they're better than their contemporaries. Okay? So I'm not saying anything ridiculous here. And I think that's the same way with like Bellator, where you have the guys at the top can compete literally anywhere. They can compete in the UFC, in ONE, and vice versa. People from ONE, the very cream of the crop, they can compete in the UFC very well in those divisions. But once you go a couple rankings down or into the middle of the division, or some people coming up, they're just not on the UFC level. Whereas the UFC, the worst fighter in the UFC on the UFC roster might not make it in another organization, just like a professional, like an NFL player. The worst NFL player in the league might not make a college team. Like given all like the circumstances that got him that professional job might be that he was in the right place at the right time. Okay. So all things level out a little bit, but what you end up getting is the UFC just has more better fighters. And I know that sounds clunky, but I meant what I said. They have more better fighters. They have a larger pool of better fighters than every other organization, and that makes them kind of like the NFL or the NBA. And that's why, like, when people talk about MMA and why there's like, I wish there was more parity. I wish we had another organization that had a deeper roster instead of seven organizations that had the thin roster with elites at the very top and then just a severe drop off. Like similar to how the UFC has Amanda Nunes and Shevchenko. Okay. Anybody else in those divisions, like they're just nobody's there that can compete. Okay. Like, I think we can all agree on that. They're just so far away. So it just makes for a lot of like boring matchups. And I think that's part of the problem with a lot of these other organizations is they have these super talented fighters, the elite of the elite. They can compete anywhere, but they're competing day in, day out against less than stellar opposition. I wouldn't say inferior necessarily, but if they were in the UFC, they would have to fight, a top 5 fighter every time. Like if you're in the top 5, you're fighting killers every single time in almost every division.
I see where you're going with it. If I was going to make probably more of a relation, I would say you kind of got to take it out of the modern time, though. Like I would date the current UFC, like where it's at right now, and bring it back to like 70s, maybe early 80s NFL versus college, when there really was like, when it was more of a question for a player getting out of college of, am I going to go to the NFL? Am I going to go to, like, the level of NFL above college?
Okay.
And if I was going to equate Bellator to anything, do you remember the USFL?
Yeah, that was actually really good. And they paid their player. You're right. You're right. Because they paid their players better.
Reminds me. Like, no, they don't have the same depth. Like, the USFL didn't have the same depth as the NFL, but they did get Herschel Walker. They did get Jim Kelly.
Doug Flutie.
Yeah. So, like, they got potential MVPs, so they had a pretty good top, some pretty good champs, kind of like how Bellator does, but they just didn't have the depth that the NFL has, which I would say is a probably similar situation with the UFC and Bellator. You kind of have a USFL, NFL sort of situation. And the UFC isn't at the point yet that other professional sports leagues are, to where, like, there's no basketball organization that's going to come close to paying their players what the NBA can play. And same thing, like, for whatever XFL was, like, there's no other football organization in the U.S. that's going to pay what the NFL can pay.
That's true.
I think the UFC still has some maturing to do, and I think the biggest thing is it needs a players' association. Like, it needs a fighters' association to start to push it to the next level on it, and it needs a little bit more of a. It needs to be more of a mainstream. Like, it needs to somehow get its feet underneath it with advertisements and with how its model is to make money in a way that's similar to other sports. Because, yeah, it's $1 billion organization, but there's $1 billion basketball teams out there. Like, single basketball teams worth as much as the UFC. So it still needs to kind of jump to that next level of marketing popularity, which, it's hard to make that next jump, but I think it still has that potential to do it. And I think, if anything, this is going to help it out.
Yeah. So that leads us into this pretty well. So this weekend we have the first of 3 scheduled fights, like insanely close to each other.
Right? Don't let me forget, at the end of this, there's a non-UFC fight that I want to talk to you about. But first, let's get the UFC ones.
So real quick, there's Saturday, Wednesday, and then Saturday. We are getting fights out of the wazoo. So anybody who is craving some MMA, you've got plenty of it coming up. And I think 2 of them are actually, they might be on ESPN Plus, but the way ESPN is right now, like the other day they showed Hafthor Bjornsson doing his record deadlift. And I'm not putting that down at all. That's a super, super cool feat, and it's fantastic. But that is not ESPN. That's not ESPN also like
the most stuff. YouTube views for a weightlifting thing, I think, ever.
Yeah.
Most views for a weightlifting competition style thing. Yeah.
That's got to be a timing thing, because I still think what Eddie Hall did was more impressive. Not that when Eddie Hall did it.
This was the fight that I wanted to talk about.
Oh, okay.
Them potentially both signing to box each other.
Okay, we can talk about. Well, let's talk about that first. Actually,
let's get it out of the way since you segued into it.
Yeah. So, real quick, like I can preface this a little bit. I can set this up. So Eddie Hall, I think it was in 2016 or 17, he did something that has never been done in human history. And not only did he do something that had never been done, it was treated like a myth. It was treated like the 4-minute mile before the 4-minute mile was done. It was treated like the current, like the 2 hour marathon before Kipchoge did it. It was something that people said was humanly like impossible. Um, there's a really great YouTube video on it where Eddie Hall takes you through the experience, what he had to do to go, like what place he had to go to in his head, what he had to do physically in order to lift half a ton, 500 kilograms. Okay. The previous record, which he held, was 475 kilograms. So
That's a huge jump.
okay, that's why I think it's more impressive. Not that what Hafthor did isn't better. I just said it more impressive to me because he did something. He went to a promoter and he asked him, he's like, "Hey, how much would you pay someone to lift 500K?" And he was like, "Well, that's impossible." He's like, "No one's going to do that." He's like, "Okay, well, what if someone did? A year from now, 1 year from today, how much would you pay me if I did that?" He's like, "You going to do it?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to do it." And he trained for it. Really recommend going and watching Eddie Hall describe this whole situation and the aftermath of what he went through physically. You know, like he damaged stuff in his brain doing this, and like he was at a party like the next day or 2 days later, and he couldn't remember faces. Like he would see his brother and didn't know who he was. It was very weird. So anyway, it was a few years ago that he did that. He lifted 500, and that video is impressive. It's a extremely inspirational video. If you like watching people lift a crazy amount of weight to work out, like before you work out, like I recommend that one. He has blood shooting out of his nose. He has blood coming out of his ears. Like it's just like what he put himself through to do that was freaking impressive. So for years, people have been trying to beat that and not beat it like he did. That's why I said that was more impressive. I'm going to keep reiterating that because I think it's very important. People aren't going to lift 520. They're not going to lift 525, not 510, not 505. They're going to lift 501. And if you watch Eddie do what he did the day he did it, like he could have done more. He pulled it super smooth, and he could have done 501. He might have been able to do 505 or 510. Okay, so that in perspective, people have been trying to basically tie him. I'm going to put it that way. Yes, technically they're beating him, but in an auction, I think there should be some sort of limit, right? Like someone can't like say I bet $1,000, like I'll pay 1,000, and someone goes like 1,001 penny, like that Office episode. Like you can't do that shit. Like I think that's kind of bogus, but people have been trying to do it for years. There's been quite a few powerlifters and a couple strongmen who have tried to do it, and all of them have failed until recently. Hafthor did it. Actually, I think he did it in a training video a few weeks ago, and there was a lot of skepticism of whether or not it was official weight, whether the plates were correct, because when it comes to stuff like this, you have to put in a lot of groundwork beforehand. Like you better do your homework. You got to make sure that the weights are calibrated. You have to weigh everything. You have to have the correct judges. You have to have the personnel. Everything has to be very official in order for any of this shit to count. And that's what he did. And Hafthor did it. Hafthor did it, I think, a couple days ago. And he did it in his home gym in Iceland. He had Magnus Magnuson there, which like he's a judge now. But he's from strongman fame, very cool to watch him in the 90s. And Hafthor did 3 lifts. And the third one, he pulls 501, no problem. Super smooth. And then you take it away with the controversy between the two.
All right. So I do want to comment on something you said, because I think you brought up a really good point. Like, do you remember who was the fastest person in the world the year after that dude broke the 4-minute mile?
No, nobody does.
Yeah. So, and that's, I think, like, yeah, he broke the 4-minute mile, and then people kept going after him and breaking it and breaking and breaking it. So the second person to break the 4-minute mile and then break that dude's record, like that's kind of, I would say, a similar situation. Like, yes, he officially has the world deadlift record. He's not going to have it forever.
No.
And he wasn't necessarily someone that broke the mold. Like
No.
Eddie Hall, he broke the mold in what he did. He, shattered a ceiling. He did something that people thought was impossible. I don't think anyone thought it was impossible to beat Eddie Hall's deadlift record.
No,
And that's
he made
why
it.
He made
That,
it possible.
when that's what exactly. That's exactly what happened. If you go back in history and you read papers or you read athletic journals, like I took a sports history class, so we actually had to do this, and it's actually a super informative class. If you ever have the opportunity, and it's not a blow off class, I promise. It's actually
interesting. Yeah.
very interesting because it explains like how ingrained like United States, like being an American, like how much of that is sports related. It's incredible. Anyway, but we learned that like before Roger Bannister did it, dude, they were like, it's impossible. It's impossible. You can't do it. And Roger Bannister was training. There was actually someone who, there were two people trying to do it, three, I think, actually. And one guy, he tripped or he fell down and he finished in like 405 or 401 or 402. So like they were like saying, oh, he could have done it. But then once Bannister did it, people are like, oh, okay. And then everybody kept doing like a second faster, 2 seconds faster, a minute faster, or not a minute faster, a couple of seconds, 10 seconds faster. It's the same thing that's going on here.
It's an element of sports psychology.
Yes.
A lot of people have the ability, but if you don't think something's possible, it's impossible for you to train your body to do that unless you think you can do. Like, there's a huge element of that, and
the stuff that Eddie went through, like the things, like he talks about it. He was like, dude, he's like, when I did that, I wasn't lifting a weight off the ground. I was lifting someone off my kids.
The one thing I will like that, and that's huge. And I think I love that he did it. I love that both of them have done this. I love that they've both done it in kind of the time frames they've done it. So Eddie did it. That was
within a couple of years. Yeah.
That was huge for years. And then for Thor to do it, especially right now when everyone's paying attention and kind of putting strongman and powerlifting at the front and center that it's at.
That's pretty damn cool.
What's cool to me is thinking about the fact that there's kids in high school lifting right now. They're going to blow both of them out of the water just because of the show and display that they put on and the popularity they put it at. Like, you're going to see people, because let's be honest, when they were kids, how big was the powerlifting and strongman community?
It's never been big, man. It's always been underground.
And this is, I would say the past couple of years is the biggest that it's been in history. So it's going to keep putting it out there as something that people with that potential, give them something to work for. So it's kind of like how they say that the person that's going to live to be 150 is alive right now. Well, there's some kids in high school that are going to, live 550 kilograms. Right.
Yeah. There's something special about, I've always been like inspired by outliers. I don't think I fit that description at all. Like I've my entire life I have called myself the most average American. Like everything about me. So there's something about it, man, where it's Wim Hof. That guy, yeah, dude, it's people like him. Like he climbed Mount Everest in his underpants. Like it's just he ran a marathon in the desert or in Sub-Zero.
Sub-Zero.
That's what it was. Yeah, it's just these guys who can do something, and I think Wim Hof has more insight into it than these powerlifters necessarily, and they're both doing the same thing. But I think Wim Hof has analyzed it a little bit better. The way he puts it is he's unlocking something that humans have buried or that we have blocked off, that we all have this inside of us, a version of it, right? We all have a version of this inside of us, but we've blocked it off because we don't need to use it. And I think Wim Hof studies that a little bit deeper than these powerlifters do. Not that they don't do this. Obviously, like I said, Eddie Hall studied with a psychologist in order to do this. Like he learned how to get his full potential. There's a reason why, like we have internal protection systems that stop our muscles from exerting 100% of force at all times. That's in order to protect us from injury. But he learned how to, and you can't fake it. That's the thing is like you can't fake giving 100%. And people say all the time like I give 110%. First of all, I hate that phrase. It's fucking stupid. Um, like it's physically impossible. Like that's stupid. You could give
Maybe
100, dude.
yeah. David Goggins. That's a person that can give 100%.
Yes.
Yeah,
So like
like that level.
that's what I mean is like they're doing this stuff and it's inspired me when I was a kid and it still inspires me now. There's part of me that aspires to do that in some form of my life, in some version of my life. Like obviously, I lift. Like I do powerlifting. I did bodybuilding. There's just something about being able to tell your brain no, or tell your body no. Tell your body like your body's like, dude, stop this. We're done. And you just tell it no or not. I'm like no, no. I'm gonna do more. Like you're gonna die, right? I don't give a shit. I don't care. Like I'm gonna do this right now. Like David Goggins running that stupid 100 miler in 18 hours the first time and blowing everything in his body out. Yeah, like it's just there. What they can do, what these guys at the elite level of strongman and powerlifting, but I think strongman is a little more interesting for your casual viewer because, dude, they're picking up a car. It's more interesting than weight. Let's just be honest. They're throwing rocks, kegs. They're doing crazy shit and it looks a lot more interesting to people watching.
Showmanship. Did you watch any of History's Strongest Man?
Yes, I love that show.
That show is amazing.
Dude, it's so cool. Yeah. There's like what I appreciate about that show is the little things. Like when they went to the darn it, not is it Denning? No, not Denning Stones. Denny Stones. It's the guy in the United States, and they went down into his old workout room and they had to
weights and like squeeze in there. Yeah.
And they had the weights and they're like there's an old school record where it's like holding 245s together, these old school like deep dish weights, and not a lot of people can do it. It's insanely hard to do and all of them just did it. And it's just like it seems easy now, especially watching these monsters do it, but it's like the things that people push themselves to is just so incredible. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, these two are fighting.
I hope they don't. I hope they instead.
Me too.
I hope they instead decide on not fighting and putting on a just one-on-one strongest man competition between the two of them, where they decide the events that they want to go against each other, and just have like just try and build it up like you would a fight. Do a press tour, get a bunch of people on it. Sell it, like just do like a battle of the ages, like fucking strong. And I know there's a ton of other strongmen out there that are on that level and are competing at that level. Yes. But right now, all eyes are on these two. I say you sell it the way you sell a Conor McGregor fight.
Okay.
Like just have them go and do just one-on-one strongman competition.
So I'm not putting this past Eddie Hall because I think he won World's Strongest Man and he lifted 500K. I wouldn't say he couldn't. I would never say that he couldn't do anything. Like I would never say that like, dude, you can't do that. Never. But I will tell you, being familiar with strongman, following it for as long as I have, like, I used to watch it in the 90s. Like I went to Vegas every year and it was on TV all the time. I got to see it live once. Like I've been interested in it. Like so my grandfather, dude, I love my grandfather to death. Like he's been he was basically like my father growing up, super close, right? I spent most of my time with him. And I will tell you, there are so many times in my life. One of them was like I told my grandfather, I'm like, I want to play in the NFL. And he's like, Brendan, listen. He's like, I understand that you want to do that, but look how you're built. And I'm like, I know. And he's like, nobody in our family is big. You understand that, right? He's like, you're not built for this. He's like, if you want to make it to the NFL, you got to be a kicker. Like he's so honest with me at such a young age. And one of those times we were watching Strongman and I'm like, I want to do that one day. Like I want to pull a train. Like I want to pull it like a truck. I want to do that. And he was like, Brendan, listen. He's like, look at how you're built, man. He's like, these guys are 6'5" and they're all just 100% muscle. Like, Brendan, you're just like, you're not built for that stuff. And like part of me as a kid like took that as like, oh, I'll show you. But I mean, he's right. So you can go into the science of, I don't want to go off too much of a tangent, but there are some very good scientific papers on how much muscle you can put on your frame, and a lot of it is based off of like, it's not bone density. Well, it's not just density. It's actually things that you can measure, like your wrists, your joint sizes. Like, how big are you as a human being? And guess what, man? I can wrap my fingers around my goddamn ankles. I am not a big dude. Like, I'm just not. Like, I cannot pack on that much muscle. I have very high attachment points for my muscles. Like, my biceps have like 3 fingers worth of a gap before they get to my elbow. I am not made for putting on a ton of muscle. My body is made for quick, explosive movements within reason. Like, I can jump high, I can run relatively fast compared to your average human being, and that's about it. Like, yes, I'm stronger than a lot of people, but compared to the elite of the elite, I am nothing, man. I do not have, like, my body's not made for this shit. So my grandfather, as much as I hate to say it, was right, damn it.
Listen, I wanted to be in the NBA as a kid.
Don't get me started.
I know. Listen,
I wanted, like, who is your idol? Who is your idol? Who did you watch and you're like, I want to do that?
Well, let's be honest. We're both from Chicago. But honestly, I was a big Scottie Pippen fan. I was always a bigger fan of Scottie Pippen than I was Michael Jordan.
So for me,
like, that was
I was very realistic. I haven't watched a documentary yet. I want to watch it so bad.
So good.
I know.
I have so much respect for Dennis Rodman.
I've always had it. I loved. He was my favorite player.
I never hated him, and I never bought into a lot of like media hype and negativity against him. But I didn't realize what his work ethic was. So
again, that's another tangent we can go down. But I'll tell you, as a kid, I loved Dennis. Of all the Bulls. Like, I liked Tony Kukoc, Steve Kerr, Luke Longley. I loved all those guys. Like, Robert Horry was on the team. I liked all those guys, right? And Michael and Scotty, of course. But my favorite was always Dennis Rodman because he was goddamn ridiculous. He was fun to watch. He was a clown. He dyed his hair funny. He had like piercings everywhere. He was a character, man. Yeah. And yes, I've actually heard about his work ethic, and like he would go on treadmills after games.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
you're gonna love the documentary. It's okay. So good. Well,
before he would play, he would bring.
Come here and say it. You don't have to be on camera. Just say it loud.
Well, like, he would go donate a bunch of kids' toys to the local hospital before, like stuffed animals and stuff, before he would play a game.
That's really cool. Did you hear that?
And he did.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he didn't make a big deal about it. Whatever. He just went and was like, "Here you go, little kids."
Dude, everybody.
For that whole documentary, he's like the #1 person signing autographs. Like, it seemed like he was one of the best people to his fans and to the people out there. Like, he put in the work in all aspects of what he wanted to do. He was just super real about who he was. Like, I
don't know if we've talked about this on here, but people gave him this image as like this bad boy because like he played with the Detroit, like the Pistons when they were the bad guys. But dude, let me tell you something. Nate, tell me the worst thing he ever did. And I mean, we all know the same thing. It's when he kicked the cameraman. He landed on him, and it probably hurt, and he wasn't thinking. He kicked him. Was it right? No. Was it the best thing? Of course not. And like, he even apologized to the guy. Listen, if that's the worst thing you do as a professional athlete, I think we all know that you're not a bad guy.
Yeah.
Dude, there's guys like Gilbert Arenas bringing fucking like guns to practice. You got guys like
Ray Rice, knocking out his fiance in an elevator.
You got guys bringing guns to clubs. The wide receiver from the Giants.
There was a wide receiver from the Bears that got busted by the DIA for trafficking huge amounts of drugs.
Yeah, the cocaine guy. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, and there's people like murder. Like, there's other people during the same time who would like get in fights on the court. There were people who would like kill people. Like, Dennis Rodman.
But he drove the media narrative because it was the simple aspect of he looks different, he acts different. we can paint him in a bad, like he was an easy target. It was
That's
clickbait.
why I
Like
loved him.
it
That's
was
why I loved him.
clickbait before the internet. That was Dennis Rodman. Like that's what
That
it was
made
all
me
about.
that made
Yeah.
me love him even more. Growing up, you know me, I hate doing what everybody else is doing, and I saw Dennis Rodman, and I'm like, that's my dude.
Yeah.
Like he is just being fucking crazy, just like doing the exact opposite as everyone else. Everybody else is like buttoning up and looking all professional, and he's like, fuck it, like I'm gonna make my hair green today. Let's go. And I'm like, hell yes. Like I'm gonna pierce my eyebrows, my nose, my lip, and my ears 7 times, and I'm gonna marry Madonna. All right, man, this is cool. Let's do it.
And I don't want to spoil too much of the documentary for you or anyone else, but the best part about the Dennis Rodman episodes are they pair him with Phil Jackson. So they kind of like focus on different players. It's interesting how similar they are. And when you watch it, you'll see like why that
Oh,
connection worked.
okay.
And essentially the style, like Phil Jackson was the Dennis Rodman before Dennis Rodman on the
Ooh.
Knicks. I know. It's interesting how they make those connections and like how their personalities ended up blending together. But it's super cool. You'll appreciate it.
Okay. Back to these two ding dongs fighting. So
Don't fight. I know Eddie Hall is kind of he's been out of the game for a while. And I know
so that's what I was going to say. What I was going to say to you is I have followed the sport quite a bit, and I will tell you what Eddie Hall did when Eddie Hall did what he did, winning world's strongest man, pulling 500 kilograms. He was at a point in his life where that is all that mattered to him. And if you follow him on YouTube, again, shout out to Eddie Hall's YouTube. Like he is fucking
he's great
hilarious.
too. Yeah.
Dude, I love that guy. Like again, like anybody who doesn't take themselves seriously and is just can goof around and be silly, I love that stuff. Anyway, he has lost quite a bit of weight. He has lost quite a bit of strength. He has become more mobile, more functional, and like let's be honest, just a healthier human being. All of those things being said, I don't want to see him in any sort of competition with Hafthor. And here comes my personal bias. I'm not the biggest fan of Thor. I'm just not. He's such a sourpuss, dude. He during a strongman competition, he complained about Brian Shaw. Like he would like protested against the judges against Brian Shaw. He's like, that shouldn't count. It's like I understand he wanted to win World's Strongest Man, and I understand you got to do what you got to do to win, and I get it. I really get it, and I'm not putting anything against him. It's the same reason I didn't like Kobe when he was playing. It's just like, dude, you're such a sourpuss. Like you're so hard for me to root for.
Shout out to another great YouTube, Brian Shaw's.
Yeah, he's hilarious. That guy's like, he's so dull, and he's like, oh, how do I put this? He's like in the comedy, you know, you have the goof and you have the straight man. Like Brian Shaw is always the straight man. He's very just like straightforward, like this is what we're gonna do today. And when you put him with Eddie Hall, like just Eddie Hall's throwing fucking medicine balls at him and shit. Like Brian's like, all right, we're gonna lift at 5 o'clock, and he shows up at 6, and he's like, oh, I had to warm up. I gotta get dressed and put my shoes on.
And see, this is my argument for it. Even though I know it's not in a realistic, regulated strongman competition the way they normally are, I would say, yeah, probably you don't want to see Eddie Hall go down that road of having to train and having to put on weight and have like.
I just don't want him to put his family through that again.
What he'd have to do for that is crazy. But what if it was not like? What if it was a competition on which they both agreed to in terms of certain events? Something where Eddie Hall,
shoulder press,
I would say more athletically, feels like he can like something to make it more of an even match between the two for the pure act of honestly. It's not necessarily to prove anything other than for the pure act of just showing off, like the showmanship of it. Like,
so that's where I agree with you. I think that now's the time to capitalize on it, especially with the current situation with basically no sports going on. They have no competition. Like they have no competition.
Because you're going to have a ton of lay fans that aren't familiar with strongman, that don't necessarily know what each event really translates to, what it means. So they could agree on a set of events that maybe don't translate as well into like determining who is the strongest among them, but at least allow them to be in a somewhat fair competition with each other.
Yeah, I would like to see them swim. Eddie Hall was a really good swimmer for a very long time. Like
he competed. Olympic swimmer?
It wasn't Olympic, but but he was very good. Like he set records at his high school, I believe. I don't know if he set them in college or university. I don't know if he set records there, but he was an elite swimmer, and he did that. Like he's done it on his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't want to see, because especially now with all the attention on these two, I don't want. I hate fair weather fans so much. I hate people coming along and acting like they know what they're talking about. I hate people, but I guess we have to be honest with ourselves. That's where the money comes from.
It does feel kind of like it feels kind of like a Pacquiao Mayweather thing.
Yeah,
where
like
it's just
watch
it's past
Game
the
of
time.
Thrones.
Yeah. People want this now, but back when they were both competing at the same time, Eddie won.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and granted, maybe Thor wasn't at the peak of what.
No, he was.
Could be.
There is no excuses.
No, I'm saying like maybe Thor's peak wasn't at that point.
It was. It's still now. Thor's peak is still now. Like he's like the peak for strongman. You can extend it because it's not necessarily. It's not the same kind of athleticism. You can excel in certain events at a certain point in your life or training, and your physiology. So as you get older, your static events might become better because you're putting on more weight, like what Zydrunas Savickas did. You become more like static based. So your overhead, like Zydrunas was always an overhead monster. So any overhead press,
Lithuanian champion. He was like,
hell yeah, dude.
5 times.
I still think Zydrunas at his peak, even not even at his peak, just overall, I think he is one of the strongest human beings ever to live. He is, if not the strongest man in history. He is one of those guys where
competing at a high level for a long period of time.
It's just, dude, if anybody listening to this or watching this, do yourself a favor and go watch any time Zydrunas did a log press. The man doesn't use any leg. The guy puts hundreds of pounds over his head like he's like pushing up a baby. You grab your kid and you hold him up. He does that with 600 pounds. I don't remember what the numbers were, but like everybody else is like grimacing on their face and they're like jerking and they're like using leg drive and doing all proper stuff. Dude, it doesn't matter. Zydrunas goes up, rolls it up to his chest, throws it up, no problem. The guy is his shoulders are probably the strongest in history, and his static lifts, like his deadlift has always been phenomenal. Maybe not the best in the world, but you don't have to be the best at every single event. You just have to be really good at everything. And it just so happened that he was the best at a lot of things. And like I said, Zydrunas in his peak is probably the strongest man in history, man. You got Mariusz Pudzianowski, who won it the most times. And for me, so he was my crossover guy. Growing up, I was very into bodybuilding, right? And that's what my goal was. My goal was to be a bodybuilder. So seeing someone like Mariusz, who looked like a bodybuilder, again, I hate when people say that like he looks like a bodybuilder.
He didn't look like a traditional idea of a strongman.
No, the guy had fucking abs.
Yeah.
You don't have abs in strongman. Like that's just not a thing. Like, you might have like a power belly, and you do have a little bit of like you can see your abs, like they are huge.
Chocolate L gut.
Yeah, but this dude, Mariusz was shredded, man. Like that is not normal. And he was very calculated in how he did things. Anyway, back to these two. Eddie Hall, when he won, I still think there's no excuses. And there are people who I've seen posts. I haven't watched any in-depth stuff, so I'm not going to necessarily argue individual talking points, but I will tell you there have been posts that saying like when Eddie Hall won the World's Strongest Man, it was designed for him and blah, 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 like all the events and blah. I don't want to fucking hear it. I don't. Everybody else had the exact same chance to do exactly what he did, and they all came up short to him that time. On that day, he was the World's Strongest Man. I don't want to hear it. He was better, or not that week. That week. Right? It's not. That's the other thing about World's Strongest Man. It's not one day. You have to go through the heats. You have to go through the heats. Then you have to go through all of the if you make the finals, you have to finish. It's like 2 or 3 days. Like this is not a one-day event where anything could happen like in MMA, like a flash knockout. No. That's not that. You have to have different kinds of endurance. You have to have different kinds of strength. You have to have different kinds of speed on any given day, and it all has to be ready to go right now. It's what he did was incredible, and Hafthor won it as well. Like I think he won not last year, but the year before because Martins Lisis won it last year because Hafthor got injured. But that's the thing,
Yeah, he won
injured
in
like
2018.
that's what I mean is the human body like especially we talk about it all the time and I personally bring it up more often than a lot of other people do. Being healthy is part of all sports. If you're not healthy and you can't compete, you are not the best in the world, especially at that moment.
Yeah.
If
you're a running back out for the season with an ACL tear, you're not the best running back in the league that year.
no,
Like just
dude,
the way it is.
I've been watching like a lot of. I might start watching football this year. Like I took a couple of years off because I was dumb and I was just getting emotionally invested. But I think I'm gonna start watching again because like this is something special. Like I'm a Packer fan, so like I was watching what Favre did and I looked at his stats and I still think to this day what Favre did was actually I think Favre is the perfect player to show you the change in the NFL. Because what he was doing when he was doing it, he was doing similar to Dan Marino, like all the stats and all that everything. Obviously, he won the championship, like he won one, lost another. But we got to see him in the basically the modern era with all the modern rules, like where you can't touch wide receivers, you can't if you breathe on a quarterback the wrong way, you get a fucking flag. So we got to see what he did. He was the first player, I think he was the first quarterback in NFL history to throw for over 40 touchdowns and under 5 interceptions in a season when he played for the Vikings. Yeah.
As a gunslinger.
Yeah, and as a over 40-year-old. So like if you tell me you couldn't drop Favre into the modern era and have him excel or be like, but that's beyond the point. My point is there are he was a resilient player. The guy would go out there regardless of how he felt. The guy over like one of the most emotional things was watching him play the Oakland Raiders the day after his dad passed away, man. Like I still watch that game now. He throws for like he had one of his best career days like ever. And you know, the guy just did it. Like he played with broken fingers, broken hands, messed up wrists. He had a torn ACL and he played a whole season with it. That's part of the game. So if you go in and you get injured during a strongman competition, it sucks. And I'm not saying you're not good. That's not the point. The point is, dude, you can't compete. You're injured. Your body can't hold up to the rigors of the sport. So whether it be your training, your physiology, your mentality, something is giving out and it's not allowing you to be the best at that time. It might be next year, it might be the year after that. That's fine. But right now, you're not the best.
Listen, some people get their arm broken in the UFC and that's the end of the fight. Some people get their arm broken and they finish it and win.
Yeah, like Paul Felder.
Yeah.
Paul Felder I think he broke his forearm. Yeah, I think he broke his forearm doing a reverse spinning back fist. Yep. And he continued to fight and he won the fight. And it's not to say that you don't have to do that. Okay. Like it's not to say that you have to keep pushing through when you have a severe injury. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that's part of every sport. If during your competition you get injured and you quit, that's completely fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There are certain situations, Jay Cutler, where where you might be it might be frowned upon. Twisting your ankle during a fucking playoff game. Anyway, so
your heart just might not be in
it. But that's what I'm saying is there's times where it's okay to say like, dude, if I want to keep playing for another couple of years, like I can't play right now. That's okay. But it also means that you're not the best. Right now, you're not the best. And if that continues over your career, every year you get injured, we call injury prone, you're just not your physiology is holding you back. It's the same reason why someone who's short, it doesn't excel in the NBA most of the time. It's part of physiology.
What came back from being the undisputed best heavyweight.
We brought it up before,
Yeah.
and it's the same point. Exactly.
It's really what held him back.
I listen. Kane at his peak is impressive, and I'm not taking anything away from him. I still love watching him fight, and I love watching those fights. It's just, dude, it's incredible what he can do with the amount of mass that he has. He just has that. There is a genetic aspect to that much cardio, and there is a historical component to it. People coming from Mexico and South America. I've brought this up before. I don't know if I've told you, but there was no beasts of burden in South America. They didn't have the horse. They didn't have a camel. They had nothing like that. They have the alpaca, but that is not really like, a long distance beast of burden. So they would have these things to communicate over long distances where they would have a runner run for like 5 miles, a mile, 2 miles, whatever it would. And they would run, and they would do, is it called exhaustion hunting?
Yes. So I know what you're getting at. Did you realize, and hold on for 1 second. I got to fix something really quick.
Okay, go fix that. But yeah, so in ancient South America, like I don't know if it was the Aztecs or the Mayans, but they would communicate over long distances by sending messages, similar to how we did the Pony Express Pony Express was only for 1 year. But they would do human trains. They would send a message via this guy, like, hey, Steve, you run 2 miles, and they would give the message to John.
It was essentially a giant relay race.
Exactly.
So what's interesting about this, did you know that the first professional ultramarathon happened in the U.S. before the first professional marathon? So the first marathon in the U.S. was early 1900s, Boston Marathon.
Oh, organized. Yes. Okay, yes. Okay, gotcha.
The first ultramarathons, organized and professional, were out west up to 40 years ago, or 40 years prior to that, back in the mid-1800s.
Relay messaging?
It was Native American ultra runners.
There you go.
It was one of the first time. So it was also one of the first in the United States. Like, obviously there was athletes and professional athletes and amazing athletics that we have from Native Americans today in a lot of sports. But in terms of one of the most popular sports in America, followed all the way across, like people in Boston were, New York, were getting newspaper reports of races from out in Oregon and Washington and like Montana on Native American ultramarathon races. And it all started essentially from people didn't realize that humans could run that way, because Europeans, they'd had horses for centuries.
Yes.
They weren't running marathons. They weren't running, period.
No.
They didn't understand that was possible. And it all started at trading posts. Essentially, Native Americans, some of the ones that were exceptional runners, started betting Europeans like, hey, I bet you I could run 100 miles in 24 hours. And I forgot the name of the chief, but essentially, like, he bet someone at a trading post like, yeah, I can do this. He was talking about it. They're like, no, it's impossible. So 4 people followed him with horses for 24 hours while he ran, and he ran over 120 miles.
That's so awesome.
And he did that before the days of Nike, before the days of Camelbacks. He did that with the leather shoes he had, and yeah, just his own ability that had been honed over generations and generations of pure endurance capability.
Yes, and people don't like. I don't know why it's such a taboo thing to talk about. Like, your ancestry plays so much a part into your physiology, and people from like Mesoamerica, dude, it's not necessarily
something where we're talking about genetics in just that pure sense too. There's aspects of epigenetics that play into it, but
yes,
also
of course,
social psychology. In that society, they understand what they're capable of doing endurance-wise because they've seen it done. So I think there is an aspect of kind of like the 4-minute mile that plays into effect to where they have more confidence in their ability to do those sorts of feats as it plays into it as well.
I agree with you, but I'm a little skeptical because I think there's a VO2 max measurement that needs to be done. But I totally agree. All right, let's talk about the fights.
All right, it's about so we got off on a long tangent, but
so we've covered Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje. Right now, you give me your out of 100 fights or out of 10 fights, You
I
give me
think
your
Tony
prediction
Ferguson
first.
wins 6, or out of 10 fights, Tony wins 6, Justin wins 4. Maybe Tony wins 5, Justin wins 4, and there's one draw or a controversial split decision.
You know what?
I think
Okay, you break it. Okay, I'll let you break it down first. I'll give you a couple minutes because like we've already covered this fight,
Yeah.
but
And maybe if both of them had full training camps, it would be a little closer to a 50-50. But because of the short notice, it's hard for me to say because I think Justin Gaethje's going in there less prepared for Tony than Tony is for Justin. And I think, but on the other hand, I think Justin has less to lose, so he's willing to put more in and just
he's
give.
already
I know,
so
he's already
fucking
that
wild.
style of fighter. So when he says like, I got like 13 minutes of I'm gonna give
18,
you
I got 18 minutes of fury.
yeah, like
Dude, how do you
that
not love him?
it turns it more into just rolling the dice. Like I'd hate to be an odds maker for this fight. Like I said, I think Tony's a more well-rounded fighter. I think he's he also has an excellent wrestling background. His cardio is unbelievable.
His
Chin,
man.
yeah, but he can recover, and that's the thing. Like
I know.
if he can recover, he's still dangerous while he's hurt. He's still dangerous while he's recovering.
I know. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. Honest, if I had to give you my honest opinion right now on how this fight goes, so I have it 70-30. As much as I dude, and I love Gaethje, but I have it 70-30 Tony. And it's because a little bit because of that, but I really believe that this fight, I think Tony gets dropped in the first round. Probably at least once, maybe multiple times. Okay. And I think most of the time he's going to recover. The real hitch in my prediction here is the fact that I don't think Justin's not playing the ground game, man. He's not at all. He will punch you in the face if you trip, if you so much as like lose your balance just for a second and go on your butt. He'll be like, "Okay, cool, man." And he'll back up and he'll wave you back up. He's not playing that shit, which means he's not expending energy. He's not playing that stupid game. And I understand Tony's going to do Imanari rolls. He's going to do somersaults. Like he's going to do crazy shit when he gets rocked. He does it every time. And people chase him when he does that. And that's the problem. Like once you get involved, like you did, like when he fought Kevin Lee. Like Kevin Lee got involved with him on the ground, gassed himself out. And I understand he had staff, but we've all seen Kevin Lee. Like he's got cardio issues. It's just his shit, man. Like that's part of who he is. And I don't know if you could change it. So at this point right now, oh man, I say if it goes past 2 rounds, it's really unlikely Gaethje's winning this fight. And I know that's like Captain Obvious type of call, but they're in my head right now. If I had to predict how this fight goes, I say they meet in the middle. They bang it out for a couple seconds. Gaethje does the guarded thing. He's a little bit hesitant. He'll land a couple leg kicks, and he's eventually going to find that chin, and he's going to find it more than once. And barring a stoppage in the first round, I don't think it gets better for Gaethje after that. And is like, I think given. Here. Okay, so I've said this twice already, but I honestly think it's going to depend on the fucking ref. If you have a ref that is really trigger happy, you might see Gaethje winning this fight. And I don't think that goes that way every time, but I think it's more likely that Justin Gaethje wins if you have a trigger happy ref, because Justin Gaethje does the walk off quite a bit. He does he will step back and analyze.
He'll say the fight's over.
Yeah. Like he'll punch and he'll go in for a final. Like it's not like Mark Hunt every time. Like it's not like he hits you and then he backs up. Like he'll hit you, knock you down, and then back. And if you refuse to get up enough times, like the ref's gonna call it. And if he hits you a couple times on the ground, the ref can call it. So I still think Tony wins this fight. I really do. There are a couple X factors that people have brought up, but I don't think they're emphasizing enough. Tony's what? How old is Tony Ferguson? Tony Ferguson, I think, is in his late 40s now, or late 30s now.
I think he's 36, isn't he? Or did he turn 37?
He is 36. You're correct. He's no spring chicken, man. And his cardio is still there. I'm not saying anything about his physicality. What I'm saying is, dude, there is a point where your age catches up with you. Father Time is undefeated, man, and you see it. You're gonna see it at some point. Okay, whether that's when you're 45, like Randy Couture, or when you're like in your late 20s, like Stefan Struve, man. Father Time catches up with you, man. It just does. And I don't know if it's this fight. That's what's really keeping me from saying that Justin Gaethje is going to win. Is I don't know if Father Time is going to step in the ring this fight. Because if he doesn't, Tony Ferguson wins this, and I believe he goes on, and I really think he beats. He just has too much behind him. I think he beats Khabib. Or Khabib fights fucking Conor, and we lose all this again.
Do you know what's probably messed up about Tony's run to the lightweight belt?
Because it's taken in a row.
Well, because it's taken so long, he's probably gonna get robbed of title defenses. Like that's probably gonna be the one sad thing. Like even if he gets the belt, it's probably not gonna be a long reign. Like that's one of the things that's gonna suck about it for him. So he's not gonna be able to make that same kind of stamp because so many of them were pre-title.
Dude,
and like
okay, here's the thing. For you and me, for like MMA fans, like we know Tony Ferguson enough.
If he finishes the run, he's immortal to us. Like
it doesn't matter even if he never gets the title shot, like if he loses this fight, right? It doesn't matter. We all know Tony Ferguson was the best lightweight at some point. Okay? You can make an argument between the two, but the guy won a title and he went on a fucking 13 fight unbeaten streak. The guy's just his record is 25-3, man.
I know.
And he spent a lot of that in the UFC. We all know.
Here's something interesting to bring up. So say Tony wins this. Obviously, they're throwing an interim belt at him. If international travel doesn't clear up in 6 months, do you strip Khabib and give Tony the chance to fight someone else for reunification?
They're not going to strip Khabib.
If they don't let Khabib out of Russia till there's a vaccine, like a year from now, do they strip Khabib?
No, and you know that's not going to happen. You know it's up to Khabib. You know it's up to Khabib.
I'm just saying.
If he says he wants to leave Russia, he leaves Russia. If he says he doesn't want to leave, he's not going to leave.
But that's what I mean.
We've covered. Okay, so that's different. That's different than what you said. Don't you give me that. Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Yeah, but
say
it starts to get quirky. Like, do you think that's?
So we've talked about this before, and let me again, I have said preface way too many times, but let's put this out there first. What Khabib chooses to do in this current climate is totally justified. I don't care about any of it. I'm not putting any judgment on him for taking care of his family, for making decisions what he thinks, what decisions he thinks are best for either the moment or his future, his family, himself, his career, all that stuff. I do not put any judgment on any of that stuff. I let him, he seems like a genuine person, and there's very little that I can throw at him. That being said, leaving Russia is not Russia. We all know that it's not going to be up to Russia. It's up to Khabib. Yeah. So if he doesn't leave, then I think they could strip him. I think what I think is going to happen is, regardless of the outcome of this fight, based off of the timetables, they're going to want to do Conor versus Khabib too.
Fuck it. Give me Conor the winner of this.
No. It's not going to happen. Hey, dude, it's not going to happen. It's the money. The money is there now for Khabib versus Conor. I don't agree with it. I'm not.
I might challenge you on what's the bigger money maker. Depending on how this goes. Depending on if ESPN is running highlights of this fight nonstop.
I don't care anything that you say. It's wrong.
The average person's like, who the fuck is Khabib? Tony Ferguson's the one with that, crazy bloody just tore that dude apart, or the Justin Gaethje flash knockout of this.
There's no way.
I think that could be a bigger pay-per-view buy. I'm just saying.
No, that's impossible. Okay, it's not possible. It's highly unlikely.
Are they doing pay-per-view buys in Russia? Because if they're not,
So it's Khabib is a bigger star in the Muslim world. It's
But are
not
they
just
doing
about
pay-per-view
Russia.
buys in Dubai? Like,
I think they are. I think Khabib is an international star at this point. He's not as big a star in the U.S., so you're correct.
yeah.
Like if Justin Gaethje,
Like,
so
how are we counting pay-per-view numbers? That's really what I'm getting at.
um, well, there's a lot of places that don't do pay-per-view. Like
Exactly.
the Great Britain doesn't do it. Well, okay. I see what you're saying, and I still disagree. I still
Do
think
I do I
there's
think more
no way.
people around the world would watch Khabib versus Conor? Yes. But in terms of pay-per-view numbers, I think
Okay.
Tony Conor
So
could be bigger,
if you
depending on
follow,
how this next fight goes.
have you watched just like a couple of Justin's fights? Like, did you see what he says post-fight? Like he was like, "There's no greater country I would love to fight for. There's no greater country I'd love to be like. I love being a part of the U.S." So, if this is a big if,
If Justin
not
just
the
puts him down in a
not
flash,
no, not the win. That's not a big if. That's a possibility. And
yeah.
there's like I picked Tony to win, but dude, Justin winning is not a surprise to me. If Justin wins, that's not the big if. The big if is if he goes after that and makes a big statement about the U.S. and saying some stuff and like bringing up like Trump and a bunch of other, maybe not Trump necessarily, but
if he
like
just makes it about U.S. versus
patriotism.
Conor, yeah.
So if he brings up patriotism and he calls out either Conor or Khabib and makes it an international type of deal, I will concede that it will be a big fight. But I still think any fight with Conor is like that's a million. Like I think what Conor versus Cowboy did 1 million after the ESPN model, which is fucking bananas. So Conor fighting anybody. Conor fights a cardboard box and it sells 1 million pay-per-views. So we all know that. Conor Khabib did over 2 million. Khabib 2 is poised to do over 2 million again. It's been enough time and there's enough things that allows Conor to rebuild and say that like, oh, this isn't going to be how it goes again. So there's enough intrigue there. Maybe there's enough history with Khabib, or there's enough history with Tony and Conor that they could run where like, where you at, fucking McNugget? Defend or vacate, motherfucker. So there's enough of those things, yes. But I don't know if that sells, man. It's just to us that means the world, but to everyone else, I just don't think it translates.
I mean, it's interesting what does and doesn't sell though. Because like
sex. Okay, first and foremost, sex sells. A pretty woman fighting her ass off sells. People love that shit. That's
but in terms of like what does and doesn't sell in the UFC, like knockouts sell.
That's okay. I would say crazy knockouts. Yes.
Shit talking sells.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, it's how you shit talk, because there's MMA.
There's a recipe.
Well, like look at John Jones and Israel Adesanya talking shit to each other. I would ask your average person on the street. Neither one of them knows who the fuck either one of those guys are. I guarantee you.
Maybe they've heard of John Jones' arrests.
I doubt it. I doubt it.
Maybe.
I'm serious. Like, I think John Jones' popularity does extend beyond MMA media and MMA fans, but not much. Because his pay-per-view
not as much
sales,
as like GSP did, or
and his pay-per-view sales, like they show that.
Yeah.
So the shit talking between those two within the MMA community, dude, we love that stuff and we eat it up. Like we know who Israel Adesanya is. We know what he's accomplished. We know John Jones. But how do they translate to the public? Now, Izzy has done something a little unique. Not the first, but he's done it more prominently, and he's obviously a champion with the anime and the nerd type of route. I mean, like Demetrius Johnson did a little bit because he was a streamer.
Going the Twitch route, getting
very
on
much
board
so
with the current trends of social media and kind of getting on those waves. Yeah,
But I'm telling you,
he's
man,
at the forefront.
There's a magic sauce that Conor McGregor put together. Knockouts.
It's got to be. It's kind of got to be
calling
organic.
out fighters.
Like
it's being a genuine person and also having a title reign. Like they, I think MMA On Point did a the deep dive into it, and they showed what it takes to be a pay-per-view star. And it really comes down to being in championship fights. It really does. So Conor McGregor was a big star, and he was selling fights. He was challenging for the title. What's up, dude? Love you.
Yeah.
So he was a champion, and then he became a double champ, and he was calling out fighters, and he was calling when he would finish them, and he went and fought a boxer. Like, dude, he crossed over in so many ways, and he's selling whiskey, and he's out of
and he's going to be
Ireland.
president of Ireland someday.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
The point is, like, let's say coming out of the United States. Okay, there's a lot of people here. We have a lot of sports. It's hard to break the mold. I think one of the reasons why Ronda was so popular, one, people thought she was pretty. She was an excellent fighter. There's nothing, as much as I never liked her or her title reign, she beat the people. She did what she needed to do. So she won the titles. She finished them.
Honest, with the right camp, I think she could have had a longer title reign.
Yeah, anybody who could have taught her to utilize her skills instead of making her into a freaking boxer. Anyway,
yeah.
But she was a woman, man, and I think that's what broke the mold in the U.S. Because think of the last pay-per-view star from the United States. This is just me coming off the cuff right now, and I can't think of one. GSP is Canadian, bro.
Oh, wait, in UFC?
Yeah. Don't say BJ Penn. He doesn't count. He's from Hawaii, and you know damn well that's not the United States.
That sounds a little racist, but
I'm not being racist. I'm telling you, it's a different community. It's a different thing.
I know that's different. Honestly, if I was gonna say like organically US pay-per-view star, maybe are we going back to like Tito
Ortiz?
Yeah, Tito Ortiz is probably like the mold of pay-per-view star. Did he do better than Chuck in terms of pay-per-view?
They both did really well.
I guess it was different because it kept rising. So like,
yeah, they both did, but they both did really well, and that's a great point.
It was the best two American pay-per-view stars.
Brock Lesnar actually comes to mind.
Oh yeah, that's fair. I almost had just have an asterisk next to him for UFC fighter.
Because he was a wrestling star, and that's
Randy
what brought
Couture?
him over. Randy Couture was never a pay-per-view star, man. As much as you and I love him, he was not a pay-per-view star, dude.
I guess I never really paid attention to pay-per-view numbers back then to know the difference, but
I mean, me either.
I rented those videos at Blockbuster. That's what I was doing.
Me too.
Yeah.
So the U.S., because we have so many people here, and it's not just about the population; it's about the sports.
Yeah.
MMA is just not our number one sport here. In Brazil, I know it's not their number one sport. I think football or soccer. Soccer is probably their number one. But what else do they have internationally that's like a big draw? And I can't think of anything. Maybe a little bit of basketball, but I think MMA is really big there. And, Anderson Silva, like Vitor Belfort, you have a lot of these guys who are just very popular. That's just not the same in the United States, man. And that's why I think Conor McGregor versus Khabib. You got, what's the big sport in Russia? What's the big sport in Russia? Do not say sambo.
Hockey.
Okay, hockey. You got one.
I don't know if that's as big now as it used to be, though.
Yeah, you got hockey and running away from bears. Those are your two sports in Russia.
I wonder how they are with soccer. I've never really.
I mean, I'm sure they have players because soccer's played everywhere. But that's the point. It's like Canada.
Oh wait, no, they had the World Cup in fucking Russia.
Do not tell me about the World Cup. That has nothing to do with popularity. It's all about money.
I know.
So.
But yeah, no, that's a good point.
To your point, that's why I firmly believe, pay-per-views, they really come from. It's not just about being a foreign fighter. You can be a pay-per-view star from anywhere. That doesn't matter. Yeah. It's just being a foreign fighter, especially coming from a smaller community like Ireland. Like you become a national hero to them. There's a large Irish community in the United States. Um,
Man, it's like the Pacquiao effect.
Yeah, like the Philippines, as populous as they might be, there's not that many people there,
Yeah.
and you get an international star who becomes like that's a national hero, man.
Literally.
Yeah, like he became a mayor, like
He's in the
or
Senate. He's a
senator.
lieutenant. Yeah,
Senator.
he's a lieutenant colonel in their military, like legitimate.
Really? I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he's served in the
cool.
military for like 20, 25 years or something. Yeah, he's just
Okay.
all around like the Philippine statesman.
So back to what you said, that those are the reasons why I
Okay.
don't think, regardless of the outcome of this, I don't think that Connor versus either one of these guys breaks the mold.
And I'll concede to you on internationally or globally, Conor Habib is definitely the fight.
Yeah.
Nothing even comes close globally for that fight. That's fair.
Okay, so we both picked Tony. I'm a little.
I'm gonna break the mold. I think I'm gonna go with Justin.
So
It's
even
weird
though you
times,
think
weird shit's happening, I think Tony's the better fighter. I think if you fight them 100 times, Tony has the dominant edge on him. But I think it's such weird times. I think something weird's gonna happen.
man, you're putting me in an awkward spot. Like Justin's my boy.
I know, and you pretty much sold them to me too. Like
Damn it.
I wasn't as on the Justin train as I am now.
Dude, yeah, because I bet you watched his fights.
I watched a bunch of fights.
Yeah,
I watched a bunch of his training, and I was like, God, I love them both.
So I'm picking Tony. I think he wins more often than not, just like you. And I think this is one of those times. I think it goes to the third round, and I think Tony ends up finishing him. I think that I think Justin's willing to go. I think Justin's willing to go 5, regardless of what happens. Broken leg, severed head, doesn't matter. I think he continues to fight regardless. I'll bite your ankles off. I think he'll do whatever it takes. I just think it's going to come to a stop in the end of, like in the third round. I think Tony's just going to be too much. I don't know. Listen, anything can happen, and I think there's a really good possibility Justin wins this fight in the first round. But there's something in my head I just can't. I love Justin so much.
I'm calling it Justin in the early second round.
Oh, you think he comes out after the break and busts him?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a late first round knockdown that Tony recovers from. And I don't think Justin follows him down into it. So he doesn't really. I mean, it's going to take some damage in that first round, just the exchanges, but I think he feels him out. And I think he catches him early second round.
All right.
And yeah.
All right, that's fair. Okay, another fight that's super interesting.
Let's do a couple speed rounds.
Yeah. Well, okay. So
I'm also super interested in this fight.
Henry Cejudo versus Dominic Cruz. Let me set it up a little bit. So Dominic Cruz hasn't fought in 3 years. The last fight he had was a loss. He lost his title to Cody Garbrandt, which I mentioned earlier. Henry Cejudo is coming off a win versus Marlon Moraes for the 135 belt. He beat TJ Dillashaw when TJ dropped down to 125 to try and fight him. And Henry Cejudo is super fucking annoying. So, your picks, sir.
Like, I know he is, but I'm also a little bit of a fan. Like, a little bit.
I'm not anymore. He lost me a long time ago. Like a year ago. 2 years ago, maybe.
Like, he's cocky.
It's fine. If people like him, that's cool. It's just not my shit.
I'm not a huge fan of the cockiness. I'm
the
a little
triple
bit of a
C, the cringe, man. I can't handle it. It's so bad.
But I think he loses this fight.
Really?
Yes.
You think Dominic Cruz comes off a 3-year layoff and with his footwork is able to do enough to beat him?
I don't think it's just going to be his footwork. I think Henry Cejudo is going to come in this fight. And while I don't think he's necessarily going to underestimate Dominic Cruz, I don't think he's going to be ready for some of the game plan that Dominic Cruz is going to bring into it. Because Dominic Cruz has surprised a lot of wrestlers in this past with his ability to stuff takedowns and even take them down. And I think Dominic Cruz comes out probably in some of the best form that we've seen him in a long time.
All right.
I don't think ring rust is as big of a factor in the lighter weight classes.
It's not. It's just not for him. It might be for some people. It might be an individual thing. Just like, fighting 10 times a year versus 1 time a year. Like, that might be different for some people.
Different strokes for different folks.
So I will tell you, I'm picking Cejudo as much as I'd prefer not to.
It's a safe pick.
I think he wins again. I think he wins 7 times out of 10, and that's because his wrestling.
Yes.
I really think he's just gonna wrestle Dominic Cruz, and I know Dominic is a great wrestler. I will tell you though, that's it. I have nothing else for that fight, but I will tell you, I will be rooting so hard for Dominic Cruz. I am gonna be heartbroken if he does not win this fight.
I'm a huge Dominic Cruz fan, and I will also be heartbroken.
I'm emotionally invested in this one. I will be jumping up and down off my fucking couch. I am going to be crazy rooting for Dominic Cruz in this fight. I hope he jucks and jives and does the Muhammad Ali. I hope he does like the Ali shuffle. I hope he does everything that he normally does, and it throws Cejudo off and he knocks him the fuck out. Like, I really do. Like, I hate Cejudo's like act. It's so annoying. Like, I was rooting for Cejudo for a long time. I thought it was very interesting, him versus DJ. I thought that was fun. But then after he's become just a total annoying prick. Yeah. So I want him shut up. Do I think that's going to happen? No, not unfortunately, no.
All right.
All right. So we got Ngannou. Ngannou versus Rosenstruck. Oh my God.
God, this is a great card.
So I'll pick first on this one. So Rosenstruck showed me that he is good. Like, he's a former kickboxer, so he's very good. Wow, I have blisters on my fingers from the freaking. I used a hatchet and a hammer to put up the nails and stuff, but a hatchet to take down the tree, so I got blisters. Anyway, so Rosenstruck is a kickboxer, and having him versus Overeem is it's a confusing test, I would say, because one, I don't think he won that fight. I think that's bullshit. I think the stoppage was stupid. If Rosenstruck would have fallen up with a couple more punches, I would have totally been okay with it. But he didn't. He walked away, and Big Dan Murigliata was the ref, and he stopped it too. There was 3 fucking seconds left, man. He got tooled. He got tooled for 3 rounds against Overeem, and dude. You can say what you want about Overeem. That guy has really kept it together. He's chinny, but his striking prowess is so through the roof. And it took this guy 15 minutes to catch him. Do I think he's going to catch Ngannou? Maybe. Nobody's really tested Ngannou's chin. Do I think he's going to wrestle with Ngannou? Yes. And here's why. I think Ngannou's going to knock his fucking head off, and I think he's going to get shocked real early, and he's going to go for a takedown. I think Ngannou has put it together. I think he's been lean, he's been in shape. I think Ngannou takes this fight 8 times out of 10, man. I'm rooting for him too. Ngannou's ever since he lost to Stipe, and he took his lumps, and I think he's going to win this fight.
Anyone that doesn't spend every ounce of their energy trying to take Francis down is out of their mind, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I mean, we've seen it.
If you're in a camp and you think your game plan is anything but I'm going to take that guy down because I don't want to die. I don't want to be unconscious at the end of this fight. Like,
I would like to remain on this earth.
You either are a highlight reel of being unconscious on the floor, or you take him down and you sit on top of him and you.
Stipe. Yeah, Stipe is the only real win. Derek Lewis is bullshit.
If you don't Stipe him, I don't know what you're doing.
So I think the real way to beat Ngannou is wrestle, wear him out early. But we haven't seen anybody do that. So Ngannou's kind of a wild card right now. I think Ngannou has improved. I think his wrestling defense has obviously improved. I think his mental attitude and his workmanship towards the game has totally improved, and it was already at such a good level. And his heavyweights. Dude hits like a freight train, and he will catch your chin. We saw it against JDS. I know, a little washed, chinny, got it. We saw it against Overeem, washed, chinny, got it. We saw it against Stipe.
Did he ever fight for Bishi of Verdum?
No.
That's a fight I'd like to see.
No, Verdum fought Volkov and lost, and then got suspended because on steroids, and now he's coming back soon.
He's on this fight.
He's on this card. Oh, okay, we'll go over that. Anyway, so I'm picking Ngannou. Who are you picking?
Oh, I've got Ngannou. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So next
like
fight, we
8
got
out of 10. It's almost a no-brainer.
So Stevens versus Kattar. I'll set this one up a little bit again.
I'm a huge Jeremy Stevens fan. Before you start.
Yeah, me too. And that's what kills me because Calvin Kattar is the dark horse in this goddamn division. In featherweights, Calvin Kattar put it on. Poop. Who's everybody so high on? Who does all those flashy stuff? He's out of Dagestan.
Zabit.
Zabit. Yes. Sharipov. There's a beginning to that last name. Yeah. So he's very good, but Calvin Kattar, he's got a chin, great work, output. I mean, yeah. So for me, it comes down to if Stevens can land that big right hand. If Stevens can land that right hand, or it's all over. I think Kattar wins this fight 7 times out of 10. But I think Stevens can catch him because Stevens has good cardio. It's just that if you can dominate him on the ground and keep him on the ground and away from using his weapons, you're able to neutralize a lot of his game. The problem is like you gotta do that. Like you're gonna have to go through hell to do that. Stevens is like, dude, he's one of the hardest motherfuckers in that division. Like you can talk about whatever you want about him and his past performances, but in featherweight, you cannot tell me that he is not one of the hardest dudes. That is not an easy out for anybody. Good luck.
Yes. I can't really sum that up any better. Like I said, I'm a huge Stevens fan.
Me too. I love his work ethic.
I'm not as familiar with Kattar.
He's good. Dude, Kattar's really good.
I'll take your word.
Kattar's really good.
He's good.
And I do think
what
Kattar
I know
wins
is Jeremy
this
Stevens'
fight.
work ethic. Like that is what I know, and that's what I know. Does it get him the win every time? No, but he's.
I still think if Aldo didn't catch him in the liver, I think he beats Aldo in that last fight. Dude, he's him versus Doo-Ho Choi when he fucking put Doo-Ho Choi on another planet. That old school knockout when he took out RDA. Like at UFC, it wasn't UFC. Was it UFC 100? Like he throws an overhand right and it bounces off and it looks like he bounces it off like this and he goes boom, and then he just throws his entire body into this uppercut and just puts RDA like on the fucking moon, man. And like how hard he works when he did that fadeaway knee against Dennis Bermudez. Like, I love Jeremy Stevens so much. I'm gonna be rooting for him. I have a bad feeling about that fight though. I think Kattar is a bad matchup for him. All right, we got Greg Hardy versus.
Honestly, should be on the prelims. So
we got Greg Hardy versus some guy.
Can I take the Hardy fight and replace it in the prelims with Olenek and Verdum?
Yeah, because what the fuck?
Yeah, can we just swap those real quick?
I think I know nothing about this De Castro guy, so I couldn't even. I think he's 6-0, so my guess is this is his first fight in the UFC, or it might be his second.
And I think they see some potential in trying to use Hardy's name as a way to build pay-per-views in the future.
ESPN.
Yeah. Do I think football. I mean, he's not Herschel Walker, but I know.
No. Okay. Listen. All of Hardy's past transgressions are what they are. I can't stand behind any of those things. I don't want to make this about that, especially because we're probably short on time. So, from his fight experience, I have seen him grow up a lot in the cage. He has had some controversial shit with the inhaler and the kneeing of a ground opponent. Okay, all of those things being said, again, it's fine. I watched that fight versus Volkov. Volkov is an elite heavyweight. The dude beat the brakes off of. He knocked the shit out of Verdum. He beat the brakes off of Derek Lewis for fucking 3 rounds and then got knocked out in the last 10 seconds, Derek Lewis style. Like the guy's an elite heavyweight. He belongs he's in the title contender ranks, and Hardy was able to hang there with him. I've got massive amounts of respect for his ability, and I think if you're not bringing it that day, like Hardy's gonna fuck you up, man. Like his athleticism, his work ethic, and he's just getting better every time. Like he's gonna fuck you up. And this DeCastro guy, if he doesn't get a flash knockout, I think Hardy finishes him.
I agree with that. I think
I can't put percentages on it because I do not know who this other fella is.
Like I think it's all, as much as yes, what's in the past is in the past. I think it's always going to be something that kind of hangs on him just because of the sport he transitioned into. And like, for people that aren't familiar with it, yeah, Greg Hardy had, back when he was in the NFL, an instance of domestic violence, which I think it's interesting just to talk about from the aspect of how it gets publicized from the NFL. A lot of NFL players have instances of domestic violence, and it ends up kind of going away and not following them. You know, all of those are bad, and they should probably be held more accountable. Now, why Hardys end up getting held more accountable is there's pictures, and the pictures are not great. So I'm just giving a rundown of kind of what happened with Greg Hardy in the NFL.
No, I know.
Domestic violence. And yes, so what's always going to follow them around is the fact that there's pictures. There are many, and there's many NFL players, like I was saying, that have done horrible acts of domestic violence. And they're not ever going to get held as accountable as he is, dude, which sucks for him, but he still did something horrific. And it's a hard thing to say when someone has paid enough for something like that, especially.
I know. And like, I'm not like, I don't want to make this about that because it's hard for me. Like I'm married.
Yeah.
You're married.
I don't want to make it about it either, but I don't think there's ever a way that's, especially just because of the nature of the sport that he went into, it's something that is going to always follow him and be brought up, and probably rightfully so. Even if I don't want to talk about it, like there's a certain, how do I want to say this? There is a not aspect. Let's just be less. And I'll be honest, I'm a big believer in being able to reform yourself. I'm a big believer that when someone gets out of prison, the fact that they're in prison should not follow them for the rest of their life. Yeah. I'm a big believer that if you...
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in that. So, like, yeah, it's a hard thing because did he necessarily, like, especially when you have a situation with a public figure like that doesn't necessarily maybe get punished the same way an average person does for what he did. Like, arguably, you know, given the charges, given what happened, he probably got away with quite a bit compared to Joe.
But then again, maybe your average Joe, it never comes up because they're not a popular person.
Exactly. Like,
and I'm not, listen, I don't want to defend the guy, and I'm not trying to say what he did was okay or whether or not it happened at all. It's just there are certain aspects of, like I said, I wasn't going to say aspects, but there are certain aspects of being a professional athlete, which means you are in general, an elite,
to a higher standard. Yeah.
Well, you're an elite physical specimen, and chances are whoever you choose to spend the rest of your life with is going to be physically inferior to you. Let's just put it that way, right? Like unless you're a jockey and you choose to spend your life with like Clarissa Shields, the chances are you are going to be genetically and physically superior to your spouse or the person you spend a lot of your time with. And yeah, like you said, you should be held to be like a higher responsibility, like because there's something to be said for a little bit of restraint. And I understand that there's times where like you're in a situation, given if that was another dude living in your house, it's okay. Let's put it this way. Let's do with kids instead.
I think I have a good relation.
Okay, go ahead.
So your entire job revolves around your physicality. By misusing that, like there's an argument to you not being able to use it anymore. Like for instance, if you're a lawyer,
I like that. I like that.
Defending and upholding the law. It's very easy to get disbarred. There's a lot of situations if you're not following proper legal protocol not representing yourself properly, doing something. You do something illegal as a lawyer, you can get disbarred, and you can never be a lawyer again. Or
Yep.
you have to go through a very, very lengthy process to be
Same thing
able
with
to
being a
practice.
doctor. Yeah.
So you can make a
I agree.
similar argument for athleticism, even though it's not necessarily officially there. There's kind of a social disbarment.
Okay, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, enough of that downer.
I want you to think about something when you look at the prelims. If you pull up a whole thing of it, though,
I am looking at it.
So I was staring at it, and I was thinking,
That's a main card.
If you took this prelim 3 years ago, this might be one of the greatest UFCs ever.
Yeah,
if you had this prelim 3 or 4 years ago,
this is 2 title fights with Carla Esparza and Anthony Pettis
and
Fabricio
Verdum. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you went 4 years in the past and had this as a card, this prelim would be one of the best UFCs ever.
Yeah. So, all right. The main prelim, the headliner for the prelims. Oh my God, this is fucking ridiculous.
I don't even want to call it because I'm just gonna enjoy it. It's gonna be a great fight.
Anthony Pettis versus Donald Cerrone. I am blinded by fandom and appreciation for Donald Cerrone, and I think he's going to win because the universe dictates it. It's so.
just say it. I love Cowboy. I think he's going to
win. Actually, no, I do see a way Donald wins this one. Anthony Pettis is coming on hard times. He's still a hard hitter. There is a good chance that he could finish his fight in the first round. But we've seen in the past with Pettis, there is a severe mental, there's a mental weakness there. And Donald Cerrone does play into Pettis' strengths. Pettis starts strong. Cerrone starts slow. So I think this fight really comes down to that second round. If we see Cerrone put it on Pettis in the second round, it's a good chance Pettis is getting put away or he loses that fight. Cerrone is able to, or sorry if I said that wrong. If Cerrone puts it on in the second round, it's going to be Cerrone's fight.
If he gets a chance to warm up.
Yeah, if Cerrone puts it on, if Cerrone falls away in the second round and we see Pettis put it on him, it's unlikely that Cerrone's going to. That's insurmountable for Cerrone to come back in a 3-round fight. So this fight is truly a 50-50 for me. It's hard for me to pick. Like I said, though, the universe dictates and wills it so. This shall be Cerrone's day.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm a huge fan of both, obviously.
So we have
I just want them to both not get hurt and have a great fight. Honestly.
Yeah, you know what I'd like to see? Some interesting striking, and I would like to see them go to the ground, and I want to see Pettis on top. And I want to see Cerrone go for triangles. That's what I want to see.
A close split decision without too much damage and just a good show of both of their skills.
That is a perfect world, and the universe dictates it so. It shall be done.
Yeah.
So the next fight, we have a 150-year-old man in Alexei Oleinik versus the Fabricio Verdum coming off of his suspension. I believe coming off the loss to Volkov. Yep. This fight is this fight itself is super interesting to me because we have two guys. Fabricio Verdum definitely has the advantage in the striking. Working with Rafael Cordero, he has really picked it up. He's very fluid and very open. Not necessarily fluid, but he's very open with striking. He's willing to just throw shit out because he's not afraid of going to the ground.
Yep.
Oleinik, he's a very basic striker. He'll throw 1s and 2s, and he'll throw big looping overhands for his power shots. But really, his shit is strangling you silly. Honestly, it's hard for me to pick against Verdum in this fight because I don't see a way where Oleinik wins. I think, again, this one is 8 out of 10 for me. I think Verdum, I love Oleinik. I follow him on Twitter, and he is so down to earth. He's all right, I'm going to go work hard today. Oh, look at this. This is me doing one-arm push-ups. It's he's just legit. He's just like a normal guy who just happens to be really good at strangling people with Ezekiel chokes. So if I had my way with this fight, Fabricio would end up losing because I think his time at the top has come and gone. and I think Oleanic. I wish Oleanic would get him in another Ezekiel. I think that would be one of the most incredible finishes in UFC history. But I'm picking Verdum. I think Verdum gets it done on the feet. I think he picks him apart, and I think he ends up getting a TKO stoppage in the second round.
Yeah, I'm also picking Verdum. I'm a huge Verdum fan.
So am I. I love the guy.
I would love to see him get a second run at the title because I think just with the way heavyweights are, it's not out of the question. That's all I'm going to say. With the way the heavyweight division
fine.
is,
I just don't want it.
If he can string together a couple of wins, like I could see him getting a second title shot. I think that would be fun.
So,
and especially, I want to see him versus Francis. That's because I want to see what happens if Francis has to deal with someone that can.
Okay, what you just said right there is magic. That's my dream matchup. I would love to see that. I'm being honest. That would be my dream matchup. Winner gets Stipe, because I still think Stipe is the champion, and DC never fights him. Even if DC win, like I'm a huge Stipe fan. I've been a fan since I watched him fight. Who was it? I think it was Roy Nelson. By the way, if you have UFC Fight Pass, anybody listening, go back and watch Roy Nelson. Go watch his UFC fights.
Or ESPN Plus. You can watch a ton of old fights just straight on ESPN Plus.
Yeah. Go watch Roy Nelson's fights. Like if you're a more a hefty individual, let's say, you enjoy you enjoy the alcoholic beverages from time to time, maybe too much. You will see your doppelganger, who is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, knocking the fuck out of like some Greek gods. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, I still think Stipe doesn't get enough credit for what he's done in the heavyweight division. I think Stipe is an incredible human being, being a firefighter, especially like what he does outside the like I said, being a fighter, like outside the octagon.
I would love to see him retire. Maybe if one were white, but I wouldn't be disappointed if he retired and hung it up and was just like, I don't need to get punched in the face anymore. I've done everything I wanted to do in the sport.
I'm okay with that, but dude, watching him in Brazil backpedaling against the cage, knocking Verdum out with that perfect short right hand, jumping over the cage and screaming to his coaches and his teammates like, "I'm a world champ. I'm a world champ." Like, dude, Stipe, awesome. Dude, it's amazing. And when he lost his DC the first time, I was kind of heartbroken because I love DC. I really do. I think he's a great human being as well, like especially with the charity he does, like working with kids, wrestling and all that stuff. I love that stuff. And like being from New Orleans and all that other things. I love all that. But dude, Stipe is like down to earth as it gets. Anyway, I don't want to see Verdum in a title shot again. I think Verdum has had his time, and I think him versus Ngannou, and then the winner gets Stipe. I think, you're right. I would give him another shot after that.
My idea is Stipe retires, Ngannou fights someone for the vacant title, and then Verdum,
I'm okay with that,
is Ngannou's first title defense. That's,
you know what? If they put Ngannou versus Volkov for the title, if Ngannou can finish Volkov, that would be good. And then we get Ngannou versus like Verdum coming up, or heavyweights is thin, man. But yeah, so back to this fight. I'm picking Verdum. I'd like to see Oleanic win. I'm not going to be necessarily rooting against Verdum or rooting for Oleanic. I just telling you what I'd like to see is him getting an Ezekiel choke.
A ground war. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I would enjoy that from two elite guys. I
want to see a high level heavyweight jiu-jitsu match. Just because of how rare it is.
Yeah, that's never happened ever, except Frank Mir versus Frank Mir versus Big Nog, and he broke his fucking arm. I watch that fight all the time. That's one of my because he gets rocked and he comes back and he like Rogan's like, oh, he's reversed it. Oh,
I love Frank Mir from back in the day. That was
dude. He was again another inspirational guy. All right, next fight: Carla Esparza versus the Karate Hottie Michelle Waters. I'll let you pick first. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with these guys. Like,
I'm
ladies. I am.
I would say I'm more name familiar because Carla Esparza won Ultimate Fighter.
She won the strawweight initial. Yeah. She won the belt, yes.
Yeah.
Versus Rose. Actually, she beat Rose for the title initially, and then she got mollywopped by.
I have not watched. Yeah, I've not. I'm more familiar with Michelle Waterson, but I'll be honest, I haven't watched enough of either of their fights to really give you an accurate analysis of them. I'll let you take
if you've seen them fight one time, you've seen them fight 1,000 because Carla is a wrestling based fighter. She has very basic, if not, I would say, not very good stand up at all. Like Carla Esparza is a workhorse who likes to get you down on the ground and work from there. She really is not a finishing fighter. She's kind of like a wear you out and win a decision. That's her thing. And Michelle Waterson is she's called the karate hottie for a reason. She's a striker. Right, she's an incredible striker. She went 3 or 5 rounds with Joanna. I don't remember if it was 3 or 5. Tough as shit.
Okay, I remember that fight. I've seen.
Yes. Yeah. So tough as shit. Let's put it that way. She fought Rose as well. Great fighter. Phenomenal. Her story is great. She's got a great piece on the Food Truck Diaries. If you want to follow that, with Brendan Schaub, like she's really inspirational. It's like she's a mom. She wants to be the first mom champ in the UFC. Like she's not a walk in the park
champ.
Yes, yeah, that's her thing. Like, and she's not a walk in the park for anybody. Carlos Esparza is coming off a mediocre win, a controversial one. This one's hard for me. I think if Waterson can keep it on the feet, I think it's a foregone conclusion that she wins this fight, and that's going to be the real issue. We're going to see in the first round whether or not this goes, who this goes to. If
very much just going to be a test of her takedown defense.
Yeah, if Carla gets us to the ground in the first round and has her way with her, it's going to be a long night. We're going to see a Carla win. I would say this is a 50-50, but I do favor Carla's style. I favor Carla's style. I would say she wins 6 times out of 10, right? And this is, again, Michelle Waterson's takedown defense is nothing. It's okay. So we'll see. We'll see if Carla can get over that takedown defense. I'm picking Carla. I think she's going to get it done. I think if when in doubt, go with the wrestler. Your mic is off.
All right, I'm gonna pick Michelle because I can.
I mean, I
like
Michelle. I like her story. She's freaking gorgeous, and she's an amazing fighter. Carla Esparza is nothing to sniff at either. Turn your nose up at either.
It'll be a good fight.
This is a pick'em. All right, Uriah Hall. Holy shit.
I'm very excited for this fight.
Versus Jacare. Oh my goodness.
Even put into words what a huge fan of Uriah Hall's. I am still, but was about 4 years ago. And this is the fight. This is the fight where when I saw this was on there, I was like, man, if this fight was 4 years ago, this would be like this. Just that fight alone it would have been a main card for a fight night 4 years ago. Uriah Hall, Jacare.
So
or at least a co-main event.
How do you see this fight going? Hold on. Before we start, this is the first fight on the prelims. Can we just stop and take a second? Holy shit. What the fuck is happening? This is like one of the best fights. Like this could main event another card. Anyway, you tell me how you think this is going.
All right. So I'm a fan of Jacare's too. I love him. I felt like he got robbed back in the day of
against Romero
strong title. Yeah, I think I would have liked to see Jacare fight, multiple times. Yeah. Yes. Against all of them. Against Whitaker, I think that would have been an awesome fight. I am sad that we didn't get to see more of Jacare.
He fought Whitaker.
Did he fight Whitaker?
Yeah, Whitaker beat the shit out of him. That's why Whitaker got the title shot, remember?
No, I completely forgot that fight.
Yeah. That's like he had a chance to beat Whitaker came down, and that was like his second fight it came up, and that was his second fight at 185 or third fight at 185. He beat the brakes out of off of Jacare, dude.
Oh wow, yeah, no, I completely forgot about that fight.
Yeah, he fought Luke Rockhold back in Strikeforce. That would have been a fun fight in the UFC. He never fought Chris Weidman. He fought Yoel Romero to a bullshit decision on the same card. I think that was 198 the Connor versus Aldo, or 199. Yeah, 198. I don't remember what it was. When Romero landed one shot in 3 rounds, and that gave him the fucking dude. Romero gets decisions like nobody's business. Anyway.
Okay.
Yes, I agree with you. How do you see this fight going though? Like really, like if you had to be objective, like how do you see this fight going?
I'm like I said, I'm a huge fan of Uriah's, but I've never seen him like break into that next level. Like as much as I was a fan of his back in the day, like he had a good fight against Gegard Mousasi back in the day, and that was really kind of his last really good one. Because he lost to Whitaker too. Then he lost the rematch to Gegard. And then I think he lost to Paulo Costa recently.
Yes. Actually, the Paulo Costa fight was interesting. I have to go back and watch it, but I remember watching it at the time and saying, like, why did they stop this? Uriah Hall was, like, actually piecing up Costa. Like, Costa's attacks are very basic, and he just goes through he uses brute force and his chin to get through you. And it's working. It's working. Like there's nothing against it. It's working. Yeah. Also, he's got a big set of lips, and like he wears those glasses like nobody's business.
He's an amazing striker, amazing kicks. Like he has that like I feel like he was always just kind of like right at that level, and he has that capability to give anyone in the UFC a hard night. But I think Jacare probably gets it done in this fight.
Did you see Jacare's last fight?
I did not.
He fought Jan Blachowicz, and he looked like shit at light heavyweight. Yeah, he just looked like crap, man. Like it was a touch and go fight, and it wasn't great. But that was at light heavyweight, right?
This is back in middleweight. Yeah,
he's dropping back down. He's 40 years old, man.
He is 40 years old.
So, I think Uriah Hall is hot and cold. That guy, he reminds me a lot of Donald Cerrone. Like it depends on who gets in there. He's very. How do I say this? He is very not emotional. That's not the way I want to say it, but it's very dependent on his mental state when he gets in the octagon. Like he's a very intellectual guy. Like when you hear him speak about how he fights and just like life in general. I think Uriah Hall gets this done, man. I think Souza's on the way out. As much as I love him, I really do, and I think he got gypped. I think he got the short end of the stick multiple times in the UFC, and I think he deserved a title shot more than once. I think he deserved it over Luke Rockhold at one point, and I think, I really wanted to see him with the UFC strap. So, like I said, love the guy. I think he got gypped. I think he's on the way out, though. I think Hall is young enough, but it's not about the age. I just think he's hot and cold, and he's got enough in him. I think he can get this done on the feet. And Uriah Hall is very basic on the ground. This one's a 6 out of 10 fight for me. So like it's just edging Hall, but I think Hall has enough on the feet to get this done, and he can keep it on the feet long enough to find his spot against Souza, because Souza likes to play on the feet. Souza can strike, but
and this is where it comes down to me too. Is Souza's had some success with people that weren't Uriah Hall on the feet, but if he tries to play that game, it's not going to work. But if he decides I'm not going to fuck around, I know what this guy's known for. I'm just going to take him down and strangle him. I don't think there's anything Uriah is going to do to stop Jacare if he gets taken down.
I think his takedown defense might hold. I really do. He's a really strong guy, and if he can hold him up, like he did it against Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson's he's a takedown guy too. He lost that fight against Derek Brunson because of that. But over 3 rounds, enough time to catch him. I mean, you're almost selling me on Souza being this is so close to being a 50-50 fight.
I just don't know what their game plan is going into it. If Souza's game plan is I'm not even going to mess around on the feet, I'm just going to get him against the cage and go, work him into a takedown and then try and strangle him.
Yeah. I think Hall's had a longer layoff. He's been working for a while. I'm picking Hall. 6 out of 10.
I'm going Souza.
Okay, we got 3 more fights real quick. We'll speed round these ones, but there's a really good one on the early prelims. Vicente Luque, who just fought Wonder Boy, versus Nico Price.
Yeah.
The guy Nico Price is the guy who knocked the dude off from his. He knocked the guy out from his back with hammer fists. Like he held the guy's neck with his foot, and then he used the bottom of his fist to fucking knock him out from the back. Damn it! I wish I knew remember who the guy was. Anyway, Vicente Luque is he's tough as fucking nails, and he comes forward Muay Thai hardcore. And Nico Price has some crazy knockouts and like explosive power. I actually went to school with a guy who trained with him in Florida. And all the stories like that I heard about him are insane. Like the guy is just a monster, insanely strong, athletic out of every position. Honestly, I think Luque can pick him apart on the feet, and that's the problem. I think Nico Price is looking for. Like, he can finish the fight. Don't get me wrong. Again, this is another 60-40 pick for me. Luque, if you do yourself a favor, guys, go watch the Luque versus Wonder Boy fight. It happened last year. It's so good. Wonder Boy is really tooling him up eventually. Like, it's such a good technical fight. But yeah, I'm picking Luque. I think he gets this done. I think his striking prowess over Nico Price gets this done.
All right, next.
Bryce Mitchell.
Yeah, Bryce Mitchell Charles Rosa.
Yeah, I think Rosa, is he the former hockey player?
I think so.
Professional mixed martial art, blah, 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 blah. I swear he played hockey. One of them played hockey.
Lacrosse?
That's not him.
All right.
Never mind. I'm thinking of someone else. Anyway, I've seen them both fight. I think Bryce Mitchell is I think is he a jiu-jitsu guy? I don't know. Yes. Yeah. I think he's more of a jiu-jitsu dude, and Rosa's kind of a brawler. This one's hard for me. I don't have any pick for this.
Yeah. And
then Ryan Spann versus Sam Alvey. Someone's getting knocked the fuck out. Let's just put it that.
It's a good way to start the night. Superman's going to get it done, or
dude, Ryan Spann, like he's working his way into the division. Like he's had ups and downs. But Sam Alvey, dude, it's like Sam Alvey used to fight at middleweight, and like, dude, he doesn't do anything except knock people out. Like he loses or he knocks people out. That's it. Like there's no in between. So. I'm probably gonna pick Spann because I think Alvey just sits still so much, and
I'm picking Spann because of height and reach. I'm just gonna base it entirely off that. If they're gonna stand and bang,
well, it's also light heavyweight, which is like he's a bigger dude, and if he wants to take him down, he can take Sam down.
Yep.
I think Alvey. I love the dude because he smiles. Like his nickname is Smiling Sam Alvey. He does that thing where he like points and he's like,
yeah.
I love that shit, but I don't think he gets this done.
Damn.
All right, cool.
And that was all one of the next 3 UFC events.
Yeah, we can cover the other ones next week because they're not until Wednesday and Saturday. So,
man.
All right, man. Let's see. Yeah. You got anything else going on? Oh, man, I keep forgetting to do this at the beginning where I tell people to subscribe and shit. I always forget to do that.
Well, if they've hung in at this point, I feel like they're gonna subscribe.
They're just it's just our moms at this point. Like no one else is fucking listening. Let's be honest.
My mom doesn't know how to get on YouTube. Listen, if you're still listening, you might be our best friend.
Listen, Hassam, thank you for listening to the whole damn thing again. You're the best. Charlie, thank you. They listen to the whole thing. They're crazy.
You guys are awesome. I miss playing poker with y'all.
Oh, yeah. Kareem. Oh, dude, we should play poker online. Did I tell you?
Ooh, that'd be a fun one.
God dang it. We've been playing for so long. I forgot to email you. God dang it. We're playing on Replay Poker. Shout out to Replay Poker. You're awesome. I'll probably play. I'm going to be playing tonight, so I'll let you know. Anyway, all right. Thank you guys for listening so much. Subscribe, like on YouTube. If you're just listening to this, we do have a YouTube. You get to see our beautiful faces, our quarantine faces, mine especially.
You get to watch my lighting slowly darken until I realize that I'm sitting in a dark room, so I turn the lights back on.
Yeah, my quarantine beard and my like crazy ass hair it looks fine on camera, but I'll tell you, this shit is a mess.
It's the longest my hair's been in years. So.
Oh my God, it's not even going to your first wrinkle on your forehead. Don't give me that shit.
Thanks. Just remind everyone I'm getting old.
What? A wrinkle on your forehead? Dude, you're what? Are you 28?
29.
Oh yeah, we're the same age. Get the fuck out of here.
All right. But yes, leave us comments. Let us know what we're doing wrong. If we're doing anything right, what you enjoy.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
All right, man. It's good seeing you, dude.
Good seeing you too.
All right.
Sorry it's been a minute.
All right. I love y'all. Everybody have an awesome day.
Peace out.